Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We are so thrilled to welcome you all to this second of our two-part series with Dantes, Kale Learning Days, focused on supporting our military-connected learners and workers. So as you're entering, we'd love to know who's joining us. So if you wouldn't mind following Emily's lead and just introducing yourself in the chat. Let us know your name, where you're joining us from, if you want to share your organization or role, and if there's any questions that you would like to have answered or things that you're really interested in learning more about. It's always great to be able to tailor our presentation so that we're answering as many questions as possible. My name is Carolyn Swabeck, and I am the Director of Community Engagement here at Kale. And it's really been my pleasure and privilege to work with the great team at Dantes to put this learning series together for you. So we will get started. And again, a little bit of housekeeping. We'll use the chat for introductions, for comments. We also love reactions, which you can find on your bottom Zoom toolbar. So hearts, claps, celebration horns, just to let us know that there's people out there who are following along. It just is really lovely to see that engagement. We will also be collecting questions. There is a Q&A feature also at the bottom of your toolbar. And if you do have questions throughout any part of this presentation, please put them in there because all of the panelists will be monitoring the questions, responding as they're able to, and we'll have a few minutes for Q&A at the end of each presentation so that we can answer your questions. This is being recorded. This will be made available publicly, both on the Kale website and the Dantes YouTube channel, along with accompanying slides and links that are embedded in the presentation. So first, to get started, I'd like to give a little bit of background on Kale. And for those of you who might not be familiar with Kale, welcome. We're really glad that you joined us. The Council for Adult and Experiential Learning is our full name, and we are a national nonprofit membership organization that works to improve education to career pathways for adult learners and workers. And of course, our military service members, veterans, and family are a very important part of that world. And so we work with over 5,000 members across the US and in a few different countries that span post-secondary education, workforce, employers, and more. And we are celebrating our 50th year as is Dantes. So it's a really special year. 1974 was something to behold. And this is a really exciting opportunity to really bring our kind of shared purpose and mission across these two organizations together. So thanks again for joining us. A little bit more about how we engage as an organization. We approach our work through an ecosystem approach, which means that we really see adult learners and workers at the center of an ecosystem that includes, of course, our post-secondary education organizations, employers and industry groups, workforce development boards, nonprofit and mission-driven organizations, economic development organizations, chambers of commerce, and public organizations as well, all stakeholders in supporting adult learners and workers as they navigate on and off ramps. And our members are certainly represented in all aspects of this ecosystem. And so we're really grateful and honored to have members that span all of these wonderful sectors, including many of you who are in the audience today. And so I'll be sharing a little bit more about our membership and how you can engage with us at the end of this presentation. Before I do, I want to give just a little bit of an overview of what we'll cover today. So in this presentation, and I'm going to hand it over to Dantes in just a minute, you're going to get, of course, a warm welcome from Kale and Dantes so that you can understand the organizations and why we're partnering together on this presentation. And then you'll hear from Dantes around how some of their programs and opportunities help these service members and veterans get set for their education and career journeys. We'll take a break about halfway through to get some water and just stand up. And then we'll return for another really engaging section where we'll hear from two presenters on how Dantes supports the service members, veterans, and institutions in launching them into their education and career pathways with some really incredible resources. And then we'll close by sharing out kind of a summary of action steps, resources, and opportunities that you can leverage in your work, in your lives to support the veterans, service members, and military-connected learners in your life. And so to that end, I want to, again, express my gratitude and Kale's gratitude to Dantes. Dantes has been a really close partner of Kale for a number of years as they work to support veterans and service members in their pursuit of education and career. And we're really grateful for our longstanding partnership and work together in this space. And so to that end, I'm really honored to introduce Gina Perry, who is the Chief Credit for Prior Learning and Data Analysis Division with Dantes. Gina is also a Kale ambassador, so a very engaged member and leader across our organization. And she's also a member of our military advisory group. And we've been working really closely together to launch a national military connected community of practice for Kale members. And as we've been in meetings, this opportunity arose as an opportunity to provide to our shared network of individuals. So I'm going to hand it over to Gina, and I just again want to say thank you so much to Gina and to everybody on this webinar for the opportunity to bring this to the public. And so Gina's going to provide an overview of Dantes and introduce our first speaker. So over to you, Gina.
Well, thank you so much, Carolyn, and good morning, everybody. So my name is Gina Perry, and I serve as the Chief for Dantes Credit for Prior Learning and Data Analysis Division. In my personal capacity, I have been a Kale member and ambassador since 2020 and have appreciated the opportunity to connect with Kale members, community leaders, and leaders within the higher education space. I tell folks that I came to Kale for the research, but I stay for the opportunity to connect with people across the ecosystem to enhance support for the military-connected learner. And Dantes is pleased to bring you today's training from Florida, Indiana, and even from Germany. We're excited to share information about our programs that can help you in your work with military-connected students. As Carolyn mentioned, our programs help service members gain the knowledge that they need to achieve their education goals, advance their careers, and successfully transition to the civilian workforce at the conclusion of their military service. Now, service members are the best trained workforce in the world. They're also very, very interested in pursuing their education. We have approximately 600,000 service members that participate in our programs each year. Cumulatively, service members spend a sizable amount of their precious few off-duty hours pursuing their educational goals. I said it for part one, and I'm going to say it again. The dollar value of the time spent each year has been measured in the billions. The Dantes programs help make this pursuit possible and more easily attainable. So on the next slide, I'm going to highlight our programs and the focus areas that we'll discuss in today's webinar. So as I mentioned in part one, our pathway to success really aligns all of our programs in a Ready, Set, Go framework. Everybody remembers Ready, Set, Go with tag team and racing, maybe when we were younger, but it's really appropriate here. So get ready. Programs help service members prepare for their academic journey, helps them bolster their academic skills, and to chart their path forward. Get Set programs help service members earn college credit for their knowledge, training, and experience. And our Go programs help service members take action, whether it's providing access to TA authorized school, helping them find the right school, or getting ready to deploy overseas. Now, in part one, we covered Get Ready and one of the Get Set programs. So today you're going to hear directly from the program manager and subject matter experts for the second Get Set program for the Go programs as well. So let's turn to the next slide. It's my pleasure this morning to introduce Mr. Matthew Schwantz, Dantes Credit by Examination Program Manager. Matthew is responsible for the planning and delivery of this critical program for service members across the globe. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Matthew to show you how his program helps service members get set for their educational journeys. Matthew?
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. I thought it was going to be like a much bigger introduction, like talking all about me. I'm my favorite subject. But anyway, look, I really, really appreciate being here. I got to say thank you to Gina. She is my boss, and she has been keeping us abreast of this webinar for months. So I'm glad it's finally here. And I got to say, shout out to Emily Bachman, who's also a Dante staff member that has gotten us prepared. All I got to do is show up and speak. And that's the easy part, right? But all of the planning and getting all you guys together is the hard part. I also want to say I'm looking at the chat, and I really I like to see all the academic institution representatives, but I'm also seeing a lot of military folks, a lot of ESO, ESSs, and that's really great too, because they are the ones that are directly impacting service members. So I really appreciate seeing that. I did ask Miss Emily Bachman to put my information in the chat, my email address, my phone number, because what I like to put out to everybody that I present to or I talk to is I am never too busy to answer a phone call or an email from someone that is trying to help a service member or needs information or just has an issue with credit by exam or anything at Dante's. If you can't get a hold of someone at Dante's, you can get a hold of Matthew Schwantz and I will get you in the right direction. One caveat is my government cell phone was owned by somebody, the number, who was severely in debt. So a lot of times I get credit marketers calling me. So if I don't answer right away, if you leave me a message, I will call you right back. So okay, so this is me, right? There's my super good pictures. The one on the left, that's me being a service member. I am a retired senior chief petty officer in the Navy. I did 20 years. I spent a lot of time in different jobs, right? So I was a damage controlman. I was that means a firefighter on a shipboard. So I spent some time on ships, out to sea, my favorite thing to do. I was a career recruiter, and then I was a career counselor at a VFA teen squadron. And then I was a senior enlisted leader for all kinds of students when I was instructor at the recruiting schoolhouse. And then I retired, and right at the bottom it says stay at home dad, and that's what I became. So my wife, she's also retired Navy. She was finishing her active duty service time, and I stayed home with our daughter. So I was a Girl Scout leader. I was a cheerleading head coach. I didn't do cheerleading in high school or anything like that. I just could keep I could keep kids in line, right? And then my daughter got old enough and said, "Hey, you don't got to stay home with me anymore. You can go get a job." So that was real nice of her to say that. So here I am at Dante's, best place I ever worked, best kept secret in the world is Dante's. And what I like to tell people is my own education journey in the military is I got my bachelor's degree at 19 years and 11 months. So 1 month before I retired, I got my bachelor's degree. So it took me a long time. And Gina kind of hit on this. And I go to Kale. I won't be at this Kale, so I apologize for that. But my partner in crime, Jamie Henderson, she's going to be there in my place. So please go up there and beat her up on all kind of credit by exam questions. But being a firefighter on a ship, you might have 4 or 5 hours to yourself in a day when you're steaming, you're out to sea, and you're just doing your job, standing watches. And this can be said for any branch of service: Army, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard. We all have to do our jobs in the military. So our time is very limited. And I also like to put out that we also like the easy button, right? So we like, and I don't mean easy as in what's the easiest degree or what's the easiest way to get out of something. I mean, who's easiest to talk to? Who's the person that's going to spend that time and be approachable, right? Because we're usually used to being told no or go back to work. But if we have that academic institution staff member that's going to, be that heart of a teacher, that's going to keep, get our attention, help us navigate through the education journey, that's the person we're going to go to. And if you're a staff member from a college, we're probably going to go to your college. So with these pictures, there's some time frame involved. So you can see one couple things that are different. I'm wearing glasses now because instead of a firefighter, I sit at a computer, and my chin hair is a little grayer. So anyway, so I am older. So next slide, please. Okay, so let's take a look at the credit by examination program. I like to call it CBE because it's a mouthful. So the Department of Defense specifically directs Dantes to offer credit by examinations to service members to help them achieve their educational goals, right? We manage contracts with College Board, who owns the CLEP, and Prometric, who owns DSST. So just so everybody knows, DSST stands for nothing. It's just an acronym that has no meaning, right? Dantes used to own that exam decades ago. We do not hold any exams. We contract with testing agencies, these two agencies, to provide these two credit by examinations. Dantes is not a test. Dantes actually stands for something. It's up there in that little oval thing. It tells you what Dantes means. So it's not a test. So when we refer to both credit by examinations, it's the CLEP and the DSST that we offer. Let's see here. The benefits abound, right? So taking an exam for 1.5 hours versus an 8 to 16 week course through military tuition to service helps members achieve goals faster, their education goals faster. And what I mean by that is when certain branches of the military are even eligible to use tuition assistance, because we'll get into that in a little bit. When they're able to use it, they at most they're going to be able to take about 12 credits a year, right? So maybe 4 classes a year they'll be able to take, and that's like hard charge and doing really great using tuition assistance going to school. However, with credit by exam, and I did ask Emily to post up if she can, I don't know if she can, but if she can post up that snippet that I asked her to put. It's a copy of a service member's JST that I asked to share with me. It has none of his PII on there. There it is. I just saw it come up. It has none of his PII on there, but they reached out because they were having an issue with getting their credit by exams, their CLEPs, onto their joint service transcripts, which that's my favorite thing to do, is help service members, right? So I asked them, I said, hey, once I get this fixed, would you mind sending me a copy of them so I can see what it looks like, right? Because I took a CLEP exam back in 2004 and I failed it, and I said, I'm never doing that again, right? So he sent me that and I was able to look at it. So he took 3 CLEP exam in 2 weeks, and he earned 15 college credits. And you guys could look at it there if you pull it up. He took, I'm pretty sure it was college composition. He got 6 credits. He took intro to sociology intro to sociology, got 3 credits. And then he took humanities and he got 6 credits. So 15 college credits in 2 weeks using the CLEP exam program, right? So he got more credits than he would be able to get in a year with tuition assistance. So, I mean, that's just something that when you're talking about benefits, you're talking about getting those education goals and knocking them out quickly. This program really helps service members, especially we'll talk about the Navy, where they can't even use tuition assistance, their military tuition assistance in the Navy, for up to 36 months. They have to be in the Navy for 36 months before they can even start using tuition assistance. Most of the other branches of service have similar restrictions on TA. Some could be you can't use it for 12 months, you can't start it for 24 months, depending on that branch of service. That's the restrictions on tuition service. However, tuition assistance, the difference between tuition assistance and credit by exam is there is no permission required for service members to use credit by exam. They don't have to sign a chit. They don't have to ask their supervisor. I mean, unless they're going to try to ask for like time off to go take an exam, that's different. That's totally different. But if they wanted to take a credit by exam so they can start their education after they get done with boot camp and their apprenticeship school, or their MOS training, or their rate training, they get on their ship or they get to their command, they want to start taking college, they can start using credit by exams right away, as long as they have that common access card, or we call it the CAC, right? And they get that in boot camp. So if they could if they could take tests in boot camp, which they're totally busy and that's not going to happen. But if they could if they were allowed to take credit by examinations in boot camp, they can. There is no permission required. and I think I failed to mention this, but these are free. They don't have to pay for these exams. Dantes pays for the first attempt at each test title. So there's 71 total exams between CLEP and DSST, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But they could take all 71 exams if they wanted to. Is that smart? Probably not. Do they need to take all 71? Absolutely not. But they could, and that benefit is here for them. We do not pay for retakes. So if they use the Dantes funded program, they take college composition and they end up failing it, not passing it, we will not pay for that retake of that exam. They can retake it, but that would be out of their pocket. They would have to pay for that exam out of their pocket. Okay. Talked about that. So when they do pass these exams, all of these scores, as you can see on that JST snippet, they get documented on the joint service transcripts, and they also get documented on the community college of the Air Force or CCAF transcript. Okay, so the Air Force they're not on with JST, so the JST is just Coast Guard, Army, Navy, Marine Corps. Hopefully I'm not missing anybody. And the Air Force has their own transcripting service. So we send that to the JST and CCAF as long as they pass. Failures do not go on their JSTs. Okay. All right. So here's the program outputs. So last year we or excuse me, this year, these are current as of today, right? So we have a system in place that every time someone takes an exam, we know about it. So if they take an exam today, we're going to know about it. So 24,000 exams have been taken by 16,000 service members, and 46,000 proposed ACE recommended credits has been given, right? That means that over $11 million in tuition assistance cost avoidance has been done this year. So that means that as long as these exams are being accepted by academic institutions for credit, they don't have to use their hard-earned tuition assistance dollars for that class. Okay, so it's avoiding that tuition assistance dollars. Now, our current pass rates, they're fantastic, right? And the reason why our pass, or I don't want to say our pass rates, the pass rates for these exams are so spectacular right now is that we have emphasized over the last few years preparedness. So making sure that they're prepared and they study for these exams. And we make sure that we emphasize degree path relevant exams. So like I said, with the 71 exams, if you're looking to get a history degree or a business degree, you don't necessarily need to take criminal justice, right? So we want to make sure that they're taking the degrees that relate to their path. So I think that the only other thing I like to say about the program outputs is they're extremely low compared to pre-COVID numbers. So we're talking about double in FY19. And for those of you that don't know what a fiscal year is, our years start October and end September 30th, right? So when I say fiscal year 25 started on October 1st, right? So these numbers are from October 1, 2023 until September 30th, 2024. So back in FY19, right before COVID happened, double these numbers, double all of them, right? And that's because we had national test centers or NTCs. We had NTCs on all of the bases, right? All bases and NTCs. Academic institutions were running these NTCs. They were flourishing. People were taking exams. Everything was great. COVID happened and the bases kicked off all the non-essential personnel, right? So there goes those folks. And then once COVID started, restrictions started lifting up, what happened is that a lot of these NTCs decided to close permanently, pause their testing schedules, or the bases, specifically Navy and Army, just didn't allow NTCs to come back on board. So that's where we're at right now with the program outputs being so low. Next slide, please. I'm sure you guys are tired of listening to that slide. Let's talk about what the credit by exam program is, right? So college level examination program, the CLEP and the DSST, like I said, there's 34 CLEP examinations and 37 DSST exams, right? We talked about how they satisfy degree requirements. And when I go and present and I talk to counselors or I talk to mentors that have direct impact with service members, is I tell them, you know, CLEP satisfies the general education requires your Englishes, your math, all degrees. I don't care what you got. I have an MBA, right? I got a business degree. Those I had to take Englishes and math and all that stuff. If you have an engineering degree, you got to take Englishes and math and humanities and all of that. So they satisfy the general education requirements. So and then DSST exams, they complement CLEP by not overlapping those exams, but they satisfy the major course of studies like human resource management, like I said, criminal justice, and they have a lot of IT related exams. Who are eligible for the exams? You got it right there. All active duty, reserve, National Guard. You're talking about Air National Guard, Army National Guard, and the U.S. Coast Guard and the Coast Guard Reserve, right? So those are the ones that are able to take these exams. So, and I just like to say this, reserve folks, they don't just get to take them on the weekends. They have a CAT card. They can take it on Tuesday, Thursday, whenever they want to take an exam. As long as you have that CAT card, you can take these exams whenever you want. What we do also do is we help support programs like the Coast Guard Spouse Program. The Coast Guard gives us money to pay for their spouse exams. And then also the DoD Air Force civilians. Air Force gives us money, and then we help run their program for their Air Force civilians to take exams. And then just in the last couple years, we've included the My Career Advancement Account, or MyCA military eligible spouses. And what that means is it's the MyCA scholarship is a $4,000 scholarship, and military eligible spouses can use part of that money on CLEP and DSST exams to help them get their degrees sooner. So right there, a couple links that you can check it out, especially specifically on our website. So if we want to go to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk about how we test for credit by exam, right? So we have national test centers, which we abbreviate NTC. These are worldwide, they're on and off base, and this builds relationships with education centers. And so when we talk about worldwide, you're going to hear in a little bit from our European staff members from Dantes, and they run the CENTCOM African areas over there, where UMGC has tons of NTCs over there for those folks that are deployed in the downrange locations. However, in the Pacific, we have also UMGC NTCs on bases such as Hawaii, Guam, Japan. So there's those service members serving in the Pacific can also go to overseas NTCs. So we also, and of course we have them national, right? So we have them everywhere for them to take exams. They can be on or off base, which means if you're on an on-base NTC, those are considered Dantes funded, where we pay for the exam and the sitting fee, right? It's a $30 sitting fee in the United States, and we pay $35 overseas. So any overseas NTC gets a $35 sitting fee. And so which when I talk about off-base NTCs, an off-base NTC could be someone like yourselves. Let's say that you're an academic institution, and I'm just going to pick on one. Let's say it's Old Dominion University in Norfolk, right? They can have a national test center in that college that is Dantes funded, right? Or it could be not Dantes funded, but it's a testing center that service members can go and take an exam. So they, like I said, they can be on or off base, and it builds relationships with the education center. So if you're an on-base NTC and you're there with the education service officers and specialists and counselors, you can have that relationship with them, and you guys can, mentor these service members, help them choose the right exams. And also, if you're on that base and you're, let's say you're Old Dominion University and you have an on-base test center, the likelihood of that service member going to your college because you're the person they see, you're the person they talk to, is much higher because they know you, they trust you, if you got that, heart of a teacher thing. So the other testing option we have is remote testing, and we're gonna get into both of these a little bit deeper here in a second. But remote testing, it provides access to those locations that have it doesn't have an NTC. Like a lot of the Navy bases do not have NTCs on them, or they have limited access to NTCs, like the Coast Guard, right? So that not every Coast Guard base has an NTC because there's not a lot of folks on a Coast Guard base. So they have to travel, and there's some Coast Guard sectors that have to travel up to 6 hours to find a national test center, right? So remote testing is huge for them. We also have tested remote testing in downrange and remote locations. And when I say downrange, I will tell you that there was a Air Force location and an OPSEC place where I can't tell you where the location was because I didn't even get told that for security reasons. But they had tents, they had no concrete, no buildings, but they had internet. And they wanted to take credit by exam. And so I said, if they have their personal devices or computers, and they were like, yep. So you have internet? They said, yep. And I said, do they have a private room? And you can see that right down there. It says you have to have your personal computer, you have to have internet or Wi-Fi, and you have to have a private room. And that master sergeant said, yeah, I mean, they got their tents. And I'm like, well, as long as they can do it privately in there, they should be able to do it. And they were able to do remote testing in a tent city. So, this is a viable option for those that can't make it to a national test center. And you can take these anytime and anywhere. So if you want to take them at home in the comfort of your house with your pajamas on a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon, you're able to do that, right? Okay, so we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So we're going to the national test centers. This is my poll slide. So I have a poll for you guys, and if we can put that up there. I see it. It's right in the middle of the screen. Let me move that over. Okay, so I don't know if I was supposed to you guys got that. You guys can do that. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about how national test centers that are the primary mechanism for CLEP and DSST exams, how they're delivered. Okay. I know we talked about remote testing. I will tell you that remote testing makes up 6% of all monthly testing. Okay. And I think I'm actually, let me add 3%. So it's about 9%, 9.5% of all monthly testing is from remote testing. So, 90%, 91% of all service members go to a national test center to take their exam. We talked about how they're worldwide, they're on and off base. They are operated by an academic institution staff member, right? And we really want that connection because we want that counseling, we want that mentorship. We want to make sure that these service members are talking to the experts when they're trying to figure out which exam they're supposed to take. And when you talk about an academic institution staff member, you're talking about someone who's going to be like, hey, you got to study for this, right? You got to make sure you're prepared. You can't just come in here and take this test, because you guys know how important it is for when they're going through a class and then they have their final coming up. It's not like, oh, you took the class, just take the final, you're good to go. No, you still need to study for that test at the end of the course. This is no different. So we
Matt, I think we lost your audio. Please hold. Technical difficulties. This is a good break just to remind folks too that if you have any questions that are coming up, to drop them in the Q&A and we'll respond to as many as we can live. I hear you again, Matt, I think.
You can hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Sorry about that.
You.
Hey, we're Apple folks. My wife had her AirPods in, and my voice stuff came in. They switched, so we do that a lot. I apologize for that. Okay, so where was my mojo? Where was I at? Right, staff members preparing, making sure they're taking the right exams, facilitates counseling and preparation. That's what we're looking for. That's what we like to have on our national test centers, especially when we're talking about on-base national test centers. Let's talk about Dante's funded national test centers. I think the other poll is hits this one. I don't know if that was on there or not, but so we have your institution test for credit by examination. Yes, 67%, and then we have about 20% no, and then 14% unsure. Okay, so the other poll question I had was how many of those that do test for credit by exam are you Dante's funded? So we'll see if that poll question got on there. But if it doesn't come up, no big deal. You can just put it in the chat, say I'm Dante's funded, and that's cool. But let's talk about Dante's funded national test centers. So fully funded exams include the fee paid to the academic institution, right? The AI. So what that means is if you're a Dante's funded national test center, when we say a Dante's funded candidate, we pay for the exam and their test or proctoring fee or registration fee or whatever that fee would be included on their exam, right? So like I said, it's $30 in the United States and it's $35 overseas. So what happens is when you take Matt Schwantz comes in and I want to take a CLEP exam and I'm Dante's funded and you're like, yep, we'll sign you up. You're going to take this test on Tuesday at 3:30. Okay, great. I'm coming in. So I take that test and then we manage those contracts and we pay the invoices for all those people that took an exam in September, October, whatever, every month, right? So what happens is we pay that, we make sure that everything was, on the up and up, and we have software and systems that make sure that all of this stuff is good to go. So we do that, and then we pay the vendors, and then the vendors pays your academic institution. So let's say I'm gonna do quick, easy math because that's, my third grade math skills are on point. So if you do 100 people, so you're going to get, what's that, $3,000, right? Your academic institution gets $3,000. Not the staff member that's at the NTC, unfortunately, but the academic institution gets that money, right? So every month they get a check from College Board and Prometric, right? So depending on how many exams are taken, it's the same for each exam as well. When you're talking about taking an exam at that national test center, and let's say that Purdue Global is running that test center, the higher propensity to take classes at Purdue Global, it escalates, right? Because now you're talking to that person, you feel comfortable to that person now, and you get some CLEP and DSST under your belt, you get some passes under your belts. Now you're just like, okay, I want to start going to school here, right? And tell me about your school. So now you're also not only testing that individual, but you're talking about them going to your school and taking classes there. So it's like a win-win, right? And of course it provides access to credit by exams. And again, being Dante's funded, you guys are there to counsel them on taking those degree path relevant exams and making sure that they're studying. We're going to talk about studying here in a second. Next slide, please. Okay, so NTC operations. So this is straight from the testing agencies, right? You have to have an established policy for acceptance of CLEP and DSST examinations. So you can't be like, oh man, $30, everybody I test, that's a big windfall if I can test a bunch of people, right? Well, your school that is setting up that NTC also has to accept CLEP and DSST for credit. Okay, so that's one. You have to offer resources for administrating examinations, right? So required resources, computers, internet, all of that stuff. You have to make sure that you have a staff member, right? So those are required resources. And you have to make sure that you have a full-time staff member. We're not looking for, a part-time, I can do it on Tuesdays between the hours of 1 and 1:30, right? We're not looking for that. Share all Dante's funded CLEP and DSST test results to the base education center, right? Or the ESO or whoever your partner in crime is with on that military installation. So all those numbers, you're going to get a monthly report of exactly how you've been doing from both testing agents, Prometric and College Board. And if you don't, guess who has it? Matt Schwantz. I have all those numbers as well on your test location. Meet the operating guidelines that are required by College Board and Prometric. And then also sign a memorandum of understanding with the military installation commander that's authorizing you to be on their base, the education service officer, and then Dante's. So we get a copy of that MOU. And really for us, it's just a administration thing to make sure that we know who's where, who's doing what. So, all right, next slide. Okay, so government test centers. Now, this is something that we started this year. We work with the testing agencies. It's just another delivery option. And it's not required to be a college or university representative that runs these. And basically, that's why it's called a government test center, because they're run by the government employees or active duty service member. Okay, so it doesn't have to be an academic institution. And the reason why I'm saying this is just like I said earlier, there's like a handful of NTCs on Navy bases. And I will tell you the two largest Navy bases the Navy has, San Diego and Norfolk. And I'm not just talking about those two, I'm talking about all their surrounding supporting bases have 0 NTCs on them. Okay, so this is a perfect way for the Navy for Navy service members to test on Navy bases, right? Okay. So continuity is key for success. So that's why we're really looking for the government service schedule employee because, we stick around. Active duty members, we transfer, every 3 years. So, and it's open to all Dante's funded eligible members, which means if it's on a Navy base, you can't tell an Army person they can't test there, right? Because all Dante's funded NTCs, regardless of what base they're on, they're open to all Dante's funded folks. Got to follow requirements. And then we still ask for that counseling and relevancy of exams. We currently have 3 Army National Guard government test centers run up. They're leading the charge right now. And 1 Air Force, one that's open. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I told you we're going to talk about some remote testing. So I am going to be a little bit redundant, but I did tell you we're coming back to this. So let's talk about the personal computer. So it can't be an Apple product. And like I said, I'm an Apple person, so I always talk to my point of contact, Jenny Barron, and I'm like, I wouldn't be able to I would have to like borrow a computer for somebody because I just don't have a regular PC. So they're working on that. They're working on getting CLEP exams on a Apple computer. And we're talking about computers, laptops or desktops. We're not talking about handhelds or your iPad, which they wouldn't be able to use for CLEP. But you can't use it on a tablet. It has to be a computer. You have to have that internet connection. It can be Wi-Fi or hardwire, and then you have to have that private room. And why I like to beat this up is when we helped the testing agencies launch remote testing back in 2021, right? That we try to do it in Alaska at a Coast Guard base. And so the ESO up there, she had them in this room. And let me tell you how it works, right? So taking a remote test is just like all my degrees are online, all 3 of them, right? My associates, bachelor's, and master's, all online. I never stepped foot in a classroom. So every time I took my final or my midterm, it was just like this, right? I'm looking in the camera. You guys are looking at me in the camera. So you guys would be my proctor, and I'm taking that exam, and you guys are watching me take that exam. right? I have to take my screen and move it around my private room to make sure that there's nothing going on, no cheating. I don't have notes anywhere. My book's not out. All of that security. I mean, it's huge, right? It's just like having that live proctor looking over your shoulder, except that person's on a camera. And you also have to download their lockdown browser, which you can't go to any websites or anything like that to do any kind of cheating. So when we had, like, I think she had 6 Coast Guard folks in there to do that. As soon as they saw her, as soon as she like went by the window, they stopped their exam. Well, it was just one person at one time. They stopped the Coast Guard girl's test and said, "Who's that?" So then they were like, "Hey, you're gonna have to come back and take this another time." So it was clear that you can't do this in a giant room with a bunch of people. That is not how this works. Like I said before, this is at the privacy of your own home or your own private room where there's going to be 0 distractions. So that's how remote testing works. And then the testing agencies will provide the student with detailed operation instructions. They have to show their CAC ID to make sure that it's them, right? And they have to make sure they don't take a picture of it or anything like that. They just make sure that it is the person that is taking that exam, just like they do at a national test center. Okay, next slide. So here's some differences in CLEP and DSST, right? So you can see, like, there's 2 different platforms. So CLEP uses ProctorTrack, DSST uses ProProctor and ProScheduler. Let's talk about scheduling these exams real quick. So when the service member wants to schedule an exam, they go on to these scheduling websites, and they choose when they can take these exams. I will tell you that they're not going to take an exam today. They're not going to be able to schedule a remote test for today, or they're not going to take it tomorrow, and you probably won't take it in the next 2 days. But if somebody wanted to take it maybe Sunday, they might be able to take it Sunday. They definitely will be able to take it next week. As long as there's a proctor available on that date and time for that exam they want to take, they can take these exams, right? Now, when I said that it's 9% of all monthly testing, the only reason why it's only 9% is because the Air Force skews those numbers. The Air Force is 85 or more percent of all credit by exam testing, because they have NTCs on almost all of their bases. And if an NTC decides that they're not going to test anymore, they get a new one on there pronto. The other branches of services, they don't do that, right? So they don't have a lot of NTCs on their base. So when you look at, if you break it down like I do, you can see that the Coast Guard uses 30% of all of their exams come from remote testing. Navy's 28% of all their exams come from remote testing. Army's similar, it's about 27%. And the Marine Corps is around 26%. So you can see those branches of service, they don't have access to these exams for national test centers, right? So hopefully those slides previously we talked about, if you're not a national test center, or if you are and you want to become a Dantes funded test center, please go back through there and get my information and email me or call me, and I will send you the information needed. It's simple, right? It's super simple. All it is you fill out some financial documentations for College Board of Prometric, and then when you test the service members, your test ID goes onto the website so they can find you, and you get money. So, I mean, it's a win-win, right? It's a win for us because these guys have access to these exams. I'll keep going about remote testing, though. For CLEP, all 34 exams are available. DSST, the only one that's not available is public speaking. They tried it. It didn't work because there's 2 parts to that exam. The exam portion, multiple choice, and then it's the speech portion. So it's kind of tough, right? So it didn't work. They keep working on it. They're trying to do it. So you can see the other ones, and there is the way to get on there and check out remote testing if you want. Okay, so and if they cancel the exam, let's say that, Matt Schwantz, I schedule an exam for a month, I'm going to study, blah blah blah. Month comes up, my ship's like, hey, we're getting underway, which never ever happened to me ever, right? That's sarcasm. And then I'm going out to sea, so I can't take that test, right? No harm, no foul. It just cancels. right? Or you can email me, or they can email me and say, hey, I might be deployed. I'm not going to be able to make it that time, and I need to cancel that exam. No big deal, right? It just resets. It doesn't penalize them. Next slide. Key takeaways, right? Connect with a counselor. Make sure that the service members are talking to somebody, whether it's you, whether it's their mentor, somebody that they're talking to about taking that exam. And make sure that, hey, you're not taking that in the next 5 days, right? You're studying for this exam. Okay, make sure, hey, what exam are you taking? Don't just take an exam because you like the sound of that title, right? We don't take classes just because we like, well, I guess we do, but not when you're spending your hard-earned money, we don't, right? We're going to take the classes that we need to take, and that's pretty much it. They need to have that same kind of mentality. Definitely a solid option to those without NTC access. That means on base and off base. Remember those Coast Guard folks? I do a lot of I do all the customer service, right? For credit by exam. So I get service members saying, hey, Matt, I live here. I can't find a place to take this exam. So I'm on the hunt, right? I'm on the hunt to find somewhere that they can go to take this exam. So if we have more places that are national test centers or Dantes funded, I have more options to send these folks to, right? But in that other case, I do tell them about remote testing. And like I said, it's, 10%, 9%. So, they want to take them at a national test center. It expands test schedule options, because if you're on a base with an NTC and you're just like, you know what, I can't make it at those times because I might be a cook and the galley's open till, 1800 or 6 o'clock for you civilian folks. So, and they don't test that late. So I can never make it. Right. So, I'll just take a remote test. And then also it allows for during base restrictions. So if the base is cutting off non-essential folks and, they're not letting people on, and you had that test scheduled, or you wanted to take a test next week and they're not letting the essential people on, you can take a remote test. Next slide, please. I know I'm coming up on my time, but I'm going to go quickly about preparation, because we're not all about just making sure that they take these exams. We want them to prepare for them. So real quick, CLEP study guides, we pay for them. All right. They're no cost to the service member. And of course, when you pay for a CLEP exam, you get a free one in your cart, right? But Dantes funded folks don't have to pay for them. So we pay for them. We also pay for the study guides. I get the study guides every November. So every time they update them, they send me all 34 CLEP study guides, and I have no problem sending those out to folks that need them for service members. And then they consist of sample questions, and hopefully I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know, but they consist of sample questions like those that are on the actual exam. And and that's another reason why I put my information out there. So if you need a study guide for a service member or service members or somebody, just, you can reach out to me and say, hey, this person wants to take this exam. Can you send me the study guide so they can take a look? Absolutely. Yes. So I also have the DSST study guides. We'll talk about that here in a second. But oh no, I didn't want to go to the next slide. Sorry about that. So sample questions like those on the actual exam, they're not the same questions that are on the actual exam, though. That's what people need to understand, the service members and people that are taking CLEP exams. It's not the same questions. They're light questions, right? Just to give you an idea of what they're going to be. And then they have some resources on their college, clep.collegeboard.org website. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. CLEP and Modern States partnered together. So hopefully you guys have heard of Modern States. I'm sure you guys have. They do that freshman year for free, but it's a spectacular place and to go to prepare for your examinations. Right there, you can see it. I can read it to you, but free online demand courses in each subject. They're taught by professors in universities. There's courses, textbooks, and materials that they can take a look at for free to help study for these practice exams and that course that they're going to take. If they're going to take college composition, they can go on there and they can watch professors teach that course, right? There's, 50 up to 50 hours of instruction, and then there's embedded CLEP questions that are in there that they can take, like a little knowledge check. They're not the same questions that are on the actual exam that they're going to take. That needs to be told, because there's a lot of like, well, it wasn't, none of those questions I saw on the exam were anything that I studied for. Right, because you're supposed to be learning about it, just like, your final exam. My daughter, she's in college, and she tells me all the time, she's like, nothing on my exam was, what was right. You have to study. You have to look in your book. They're not going to just give you the stuff that you've been, doing all the time. I was an instructor. We did the same thing. Trickery, that's what I call it. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about DSST preparation. So DSST study guides. This is kind of cool. It is a little bit of journey for them to get to, but the EBSCO Express through the MWR Digital Library, I know that's a mouthful, but service members and dependents, as long as somebody has a DOD ID, they can get into that that MWR Digital Library through EBSCO, right? If they go to that website, it's no cost. It doesn't cost any money. There's tons of study material on there. I mean, anything you want to study. There are CLEP study guides on there. They are not authorized by CLEP, though. CLEP only authorizes their study guides as materials to study for their CLEP exams. So if you go on Google and you Google CLEP study stuff, there's no guarantee that you're going to pass that exam. They say don't use that stuff. Just use their study guides. DSST, they have actually partnered with EBSCO Express and gave them permission. They are like, yep, those study guides go with our exams. You're good to go. So it's not just study guides, though, because when I went in there, I'm like, I'm just going to download these study guides so that I can send these out, because it's just a pain in the butt for Matt Schwantz. So if it's a pain in the butt for me, it's probably a pain in the butt for somebody else. So I'm like, I'm just going to download these DSST study guides and I'll send them out if someone asks for them, right? But when I was on there, man, they got study guides, videos, micro lessons, practice tests. They've got all kinds of stuff for each test title for DSST. There's a ton of stuff on there. So I'm just like, man, if there's no way you could fail that exam if you're studying for this, right? So anyway, I will tell you about these other things for these service members if you're someone that's going to talk to them. GetCollegeCredit.com is the DSST website. You go on there, you can look at all the DSST exams. You can find a test center. You could find your national test center if you were a national test center. It'll tell you if it's DANTES funded or not. And I will tell you that service members are going to look for that DANTES funded. Even if you don't charge service members a fee. If you're like, well, I'm a test center, but we don't charge them a fee, that's great, because I went to the National College Testing Association conference in Savannah, Georgia, back in was that August? Yeah, during the hurricane in August. And I talked to a lot of people, and they're like, oh yeah, we don't test service members. Well, they don't know that. And if I don't know that, I'm not going to your test center. I could call you, but I don't want to call you. I just want to be able to see if your DANTES funded, right? If it's DANTES funded, I know that you're not going to charge me. Okay. So now I will tell you these other ones that I don't talk to service members about because they cost. So they do have online test prep materials. It costs them money, right? It's like a monthly fee. So if you're only wanting to take one DSST, if it's $20 a month, you study for your DSST and then you forget it, like my Sirius XM subscription, and I don't listen to Sirius XM, but I'm paying $34 a month. You know what I mean? That's the same thing that can happen to these service members. We don't want that. And then there's Peterson flashcards. They cost money too. So we don't want them to have to pay for prep. However, these things that I just told you on the EBSCO Express are fantastic. And if I can download them, they can download them. So they can download them to their stuff and they can study for their exam. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm wrapping up. Joint service transcript, okay, JST. We don't own it. DANTES does not own the joint service transcripts. Can anybody tell me who's owning it? That doesn't work for DANTES? That's right, the Navy. The Navy owns the joint service transcript, okay? We send our CLEP and DSST exams, passing scores, to the joint service transcripts. And this is where you sign into it. So if you guys want to take a screenshot of that, if you're trying to help a service member out, or a veteran, because veterans can go in there and pull up their joint service transcripts too, which means any college that they use their GI Bill on, tuition assistance, credit by exam, anything that was funded by the government while they were in service will be on their joint service transcript. Okay. We also have like our rates. I was a damage controlman, so there's a bunch of firefighting stuff on there. Then I was a Navy counselor and recruiter, so there's a bunch of business stuff on there. And all these recommended credits by ACE, American Council on Education. And there's Carolyn coming on to kick me off. So look, I'll say this one more time. Hopefully you guys got my information. Please reach out to me if you need to. If you want to do a one-on-one, if you need a Teams meeting with your folks for more information, I'll do whatever. I will. It costs no money because the government's paying me, and my boss loves it when I go and speak to people. And you can also tell, even though I'm a sailor, I didn't say one swear word this whole time. So I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that. And my boss might give me a high five. So anyway, I appreciate that. Are there any questions, right, Carolyn? I got to ask if there's any questions.
I think we have time for one quick question before we go to break, but if there's more from the audience, put them in Q&A, and I'm sure Matt will kind of look at them when we move to the next section. But I'm asking this question because I'm told it comes up often.
Mhm.
My institution is not listed as a school that accepts DSST for credit. How can I be added?
Oh, so the school is not listed as a school that accepts CLEP or DSST for credit. That's a great question. So right off the top of my head, I would have to say you would have to talk to your school about finding out why they don't give credit for CLEP or DSST, find out the restrictions on that. And then if there's any wiggle room or anything like that, I am not sure. I can find out though. I can see.
Actually, the person that asked has their hand raised, so Greg, I'm gonna try to get you off mute so you can maybe provide a little bit more context. There we go. So Greg's gonna share a little bit more.
All right.
Hi, my name's Greg. I'm the Credit for Prior Learning Specialist at Technical College in Wisconsin. So I deal with all of our Credit for Prior Learning topics. We do accept CLEP and DSST credits. We have here for years. It's just when I look at the DSST website under the Test Center resources, you can filter by schools that accept DSST exams. We're not included in that listing. And I would like to be included in that listing so that can be publicized that we do accept those credits. We have that information on our own website, but that's helpful if it would be out on the DSST website.
Are you guys listed in the search function?
We're not listed in the search function that I could see. So we're not a DSST testing center, but we would accept DSST exam scores for review. We do a 1 credit.
Did you get my
those.
Did you get my information, my email?
Yeah, I did. I emailed you, and I emailed the DSST website directly as well with that request.
Tell me, I will tell you that Prometric is working on that search function. They have made huge strides even in the last few months. It's not 100%, but if you emailed me, I will send that to my point of contact, who is fabulous at Prometric, and we'll get you added on there as someone who accepts credit.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Greg. Well, we're going to give folks a 5-minute break before I move on to our next round of presentations.
Look at that. See, I brief all the way, no questions. No questions.
No, there's a question in Q&A that I think, Matt, if you wanted to maybe type out a response during break, that'd be great. Joan, yes, Matt's email is in the chat, but we'll make sure to reshare that. So folks, we'll be back at 12:10. When we return, we're going to hear about the DoD MOU and TA Decide programs, and then the Contingency Overseas Education Support Program. So you don't want to miss more information, but take a quick break and we'll be back soon. And if there's any more questions folks have, feel free to put them in that Q&A section, and especially if they're for Matt, we can try to address some of those while the next presentation is happening. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 4 minutes, and enjoy your little break. All right, welcome back, everyone. I know that was a quick break, but hopefully it was a little nice to get up and move around. We are going to get started, and it is my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Eddie Hadaba, who is the Department of Defense MOU Program Analyst. I am hearing a little bit of background noise, so I'm not sure if maybe one of our audience members is off mute. But anyways, before I turn it over to you, Eddie, I know that there were a few questions from our audience related to Matt's presentation. So as you head into your presentation, if other Dantes folks might just look into those questions and type some responses to our attendees just to help them out. And now I'm going to hand it over to you, Eddie. So thanks so much for being with us and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate the invite today. So hello, everyone. And today I'm going to provide a brief overview of the DoD MOU program and TA Decide. And as you know, Matt had, you put questions. If you got any questions, please put them in the chat. And also in the chat is my direct government email address. So if you got questions, you want to email me directly, I'd be happy to entertain those. And we'll have if we get some time, I guess we'll answer some questions towards the end. So now that you're ready and you've gotten set, well, let's go, and you're ready to let your journey begin. So let's get started. And I'm just on a little note, I'm going to turn my camera off to save a little bandwidth because my internet can be a little sketchy. So I'm going to kind of go off camera, but hopefully my audio stays. Next slide, please. So the Department of Defense Memorandum of Understanding, DoD MOU program, it's a partnership between the DoD and accredited academic institutions, or AIs. You'll see that throughout the brief here. And it's to help ensure that service members are attending quality education programs. Excuse me. So why does the DoD MOU program exist? Well, the DoD program exists because of instruction 1322.08E. I know that's a mouthful, I get it. But it directs the department to maintain education opportunities for service members that provide access to accredited post-secondary institutions. Additionally, an outcome of Presidential Executive Order 13607 from 2012 was the principles of the excellence. And they were to ensure that service members have the information, support, and protections while using federal education benefits. Now, the DoD MOU is part of the Defense Department's three-tier mechanism for ensuring, service members using tuition assistance benefits are provided the specific protections outlined within the executive order, and that was, the 13607, for quality education institutions. And I'm speaking about academic institutions and their partnerships with the DoD. So some may ask, well, why does this really matter to service members, or what does it, Well, the DoD MOU programs offer several distinct benefits to service members using tuition assistance. The DoD MOU program provides these benefits, as you can see up there, to service members. Through our website, it allows 24/7 access and is available to the public. It doesn't require any logon credentials. Now, there is a little bit exception on that, and that's for education institutions, and I'll talk about that later. But to get access to the information on the site, no logins required. We got about 2,400 schools that have been vetted by the DoD to ensure that service members are choosing schools and programs of quality and value. And 100% of the schools with signed MOUs are eligible for military tuition assistance. So no guesswork is required. Through the website is easy online access and for student convenience. So no matter where the service members are stationed, they get internet access, they can gain information on the MOU site. Service members can review the academic information from the institution either at their own pace or with the guidance of education counselors. And we've had many of those counselors reach back to us saying, hey, we really appreciate this information because it's really helped us in guiding our service members. And this information is trusted data. And this trusted data is there to support the decision-making process. And I'll tell you more about the data sources that support service members as they make educational decisions in just a few moments. And there's thousands of schools to choose from and to compare using a variety of filters. We'll show you that here in just a little bit, which helps service members make the right choice. So based on what I said, quick quiz, you can put this in chat. So here's the question. Are there DoD level passwords required in place for service members using the DoD MOU homepage? So put your yes or no in chat. Kind of a quick check on this. So the key thing here is service members. So here's the answer. No, there's no logon credentials needed to access the DoD MOU homepage. Now, the exception is for institutions. Now, institutions do have username and passwords that they use to access their information. And like I said previously, I'm going to go into a little bit of that later. But for a service member, they do not require a password. Next question. And also put this in chat. Not next slide, next question. The information on the homepage includes reviews and questions and opinions from students who have attended the participating academic institution. So a student goes there, do they put their opinions on how that school was, etc.? Yes or no? You think you'll find that in the MOU webpage? Please put it in chat. So the actual answer is no. The information in the MOU, it comes from trusted data sources, not from somebody's opinion, and it's totally information, data driven, that is located on our website. Now, next slide, please. So what are some of the requirements for an institution to become a DoD MOU school? So to participate in the DoD MOU program, or essentially become eligible to accept military tuition assistance, academic institutions must meet certain eligibility requirement. And if you're an academic institution and you're interested in participating in a DoD MOU program, here's some items or following criteria does apply. A, if you want to get military TA, you must first of all have a signed DoD Voluntary Education Partnership MOU. So in short, you must have a DoD MOU that has been signed by the policy office indicating that you have an MOU, so you're good to go to receive military TA. Additionally, part of that process is that you must comply with the state laws and their requirements. You must also be state approved for the use of veterans education benefits. For example, like post 9/11, GI Bill, those sort of things. You must be certified to participate in federal student aid programs through the Department of Education, or ED. But for MOU purposes, an academic institution must be Title IV eligible for receiving federal financial aid with either a certified, or a big C next to the name, or provisionally certified, a P, to participate in a federal direct student loan. Now, that's a lot, but essentially what that means, it says when you go to file your application to become an MOU school, you've already put your information in to the Department of Ed. They will look at your e-application through the Department of Ed, and they will have in our coding system, you're either going to be C certified for Title IV or P provisionally certified for Title IV. If you don't have either of those, you're not going to get past the gatekeeper in the data system. So just kind of know what that means. Additionally, you must hold a national or regionally accreditation by an accrediting body recognized by Department of Education, and conduct those programs that support degree programs from that institution. So if you have any specialized degrees that require special accreditation, whether they're in like nuke med or nursing, and they have to, those particular programs have to be certified at a different accrediting body other than a national region accreditation, then those requirements must be met as well. And then lastly, academic institutions will renew their MOU every 5 years. So if you have an approved MOU every 5 years, you have to go through this process, which we are just finally finishing up this cycle, this past summer, and now moving into the fall. We're almost done. Every 5 years, if you're an MOU school, you have to go through a 5-year renewal where the folks at the policy team will do a nose to tail, stem to this, evaluation of your MOU to make sure that everything is in compliance. The other thing is that annually each institution must update their tuition rates through the portal, through the system. So yeah, that was a lot to become an approved MOU school. Like I said, we have approximately 2,400 in the system now. So there's a lot of steps, but many schools do it. And we appreciate that they're going through that process, and we're finishing up on the 5-year renewal. So now we'll look at navigating through the homepage. Next slide, please. So here's the DoD MOU homepage. As you can see at the top of this slide, it says that, you can locate it at www.dodmou.com. Now, this is a public-facing site. It does not, as I previously said, require a password to view the information listed here on the homepage, or any of the tabs and links that are associated with this web page. And if you look on the slide in your upper left, there's the home, and then upper on the red ribbon, there's a home area there. If you click that, no matter where you are on the homepage, it'll always bring you back to here. So essentially, this is the homepage. This is the landing page. Now, next to that on the right is the TA Decide, which I'm going to go in a little bit more depth with the TA Decide here in just a few moments. And to the right of that is the Participating Institutions tab. Now, this is where there's a comprehensive list of all DoD MOU institutions. And it's a listing that has the latest version of their signed and policy team approved MOUs. So if you want to know if a school is eligible to receive TA, you can click on that button there. It'll load up a search filter. You put the name of the school, click search, and it'll tell you if they're participating as a DoD MOU school. If they're on there, then they're eligible to receive TA funding. Pretty simple. The next one over is the Contact Us tab. Now, this is where, excuse me, you're going to find contact information for various sources, but primarily for the DoD MOU technical team, which is us here at Dantes, and the policy team, which is also the compliance branch of the MOU program. Our email address there, our hours of operation, telephone numbers, etc., is located on the Contact Us tab. Now, at any time, if you guys got a question about anything and you couldn't remember what my email address was or whatever the case may be, just click on the Contact Us tab. And when you click the DoD MOU technical team link, it'll take you to our general mailbox. Myself and two of my coworkers, we monitor that box every day. If you got a question, feel free to email it there. I just ask that you leave some way we can get back in touch with you with a phone number or something. So if we have to call you to do a follow-up, but I guarantee you we will absolutely answer your questions and get you down, down the right path if it's not in our lane. So then in the next area to the right, there is the FAQs. As it states, it's frequently asked questions. Now, if you click there, there's several things that we're going to cover in there, general topics such as tuition assistance related matters. Wow, that was a tongueful. Academic institution eligibility, some policy issues, some more requirements that you may have questions about. There's a greater breakdowns on those. You may have questions about how do I access the base, that installation. So there's questions that cover that. And a lot of schools, when they're beginning this process, some of them don't even know where to start. So we have a little section there that essentially guides people through the Office of Post-Secondary Education information, where they can get their academic identification number, which is called OPEID. Service members won't know what that is, but a school will once they are assigned by the Department of Education this number, because that's kind of like the Willy Wonka golden ticket number that you use throughout all of the Department of Ed to identify your unique school information. So that's the red tab along the top there. Now to the right there, you'll see along the side on the right, you'll see a couple little areas there where it says, hey, check your dashboard. Now that's a note for schools, but below that, it talks about latest news and resources. Now, granted, we're still on the homepage. So latest news lists important updates related to DoD voluntary education in general. So for example, we have a bulletin out there that helps institutions navigate their way through the 5-year renewal process and TA. Okay. So those type of latest news, hey, this is what's happening now. Now on the resources tab, just below it on the blue there, you'll see that this is where we're going to list resources to help them with the application. So as far as the institution, some compliance information, accrediting agencies, etc. So if they want a question about, hey, what is the instruction that covers this? This resources area can guide them along that way. And then the last little area on this slide, you'll see it says 1, 2, 3 across there. It's red and yellow and green. So this is part of the applications for MOU. You'll see that the number one, if you click that, you can see a sample MOU. So if you want to see what it would look like, if you're a school that may be interested in becoming an MOU participant to use to get TA, you click that and you say, oh, this is what one would look like. The second one there is, if you are that school looking at trying to do something like that, number 2, if you click that, you're going to pop up our institution guide. Now it's 100 pages. I know it's a lot. Hey, but there's a lot of pictures in it. But what it does, it gives you step-by-step instructions on how, from the very beginning of the application process all the way up through the approval process, what you need to do and how you need to enter information. It's very thorough. Like I said, step-by-step guide for an MOU application. And then third is how you would actually submit the application, gives you information about that. So that's the MOU homepage. And with that, we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to take a little bit deeper look into TA Decide. So on TA Decide, remember it was the second button on the red ribbon. It takes you to this TA Decide, which is a college comparison tool. So with the thinking caps on, kind of think about when you were a student and you were in the process of filling out either a college application or shopping for a school or whatever you want to call it. Think about, how did you end up choosing the college or university that you wanted to attend? So there's many different things. There's reasons that prospective students choose the schools they want to attend. Maybe for you or someone else, it may have been because the type of programs they offered. Maybe it was the amenities or facilities on campus. And maybe it was the school's athletics, either as a participant or a fan. Or maybe you wanted to stay close to home, or maybe you didn't. You want to get as far away from home as possible. So there's many, many factors that go into the decision-making process of picking an education institution. Well, when service members decide to use tuition assistance, this tool, the TA Decide College Comparison Tool, is there to help them make a data-informed decision about the academic institution that will best fit their wants and needs. So what is TA Decide? I said it was a tool, right? And it resides out there on the MOU homepage. But remember, only academic institutions with a signed, approved MOU are eligible to receive the military tuition assistance dollars. So this ensures that service members use their TA funding will be used them on quality education programs. And with TA Decide, service members can be assured that the academic institutions they see in the TA Decide tool meet stringent requirements. We went through a whole bunch of things earlier about some of these requirements and what they need, such as accreditation, eligibility on VA education benefits and certifications for federal aid. And each one of those requirements has their own qualifier as set forth by the corresponding government entity, such as the Department of Education. So there's a lot that goes into, and the schools put a lot of effort to get their accreditation and all the elements that it takes to become an MOU school. They put a lot of work into it. Now, on this site, like I said, we have approximately 2,400 partnership with institutions that have over 8,400 plus locations to choose from. Now, what that means is that one education institution may have multiple campuses. And so that equates to a wide variety of academic institution choices. Now, TA Decide uses search engines. Now, these search engines receive data from more than 10 government sources, government trusted sources. And some big ones that I want to name are the Department of Education. Now, there are several federal financial aid information, college data sources, such as the College Scorecard and College Navigator, and the Post-Secondary Education Participants System, or PEPS. Now, we also get information from the Veterans Affairs about data from VA education benefit users and fundings. But the backbone of information that is housed and viewed via the TA Decide portal there is information derived from the DoD MOU program, which, as you know, like I said, all these institutions have been vetted. So that information that is in there, and we're going to take a little bit look at it here in just a few moments, that information has been vetted by the policy office, and there was programs and the valuations that's listed there is there, so a military TA can be used at that institution. This data ensures that the information that service members see in TA Decide is verified and is reliable. Now, information may sound familiar since it aligns with information previously mentioned. And like I said, as you can see, the MOU program and TA Decide essentially work together to support members using TA. It's the backbone of the information. And one of the reasons is like I mentioned before, institutions go in every year to update their academic calendar, their programs, their rates, their fees, et cetera, et cetera. There's a requirement and instruction that institutions go in there. So we have the most up-to-date information to display via TA Decide. Now, when institutions don't do that, and some of them don't, but when they don't, then there could be information from the institution that isn't incorrect and it's not matching their website. So our team does a really good job of reaching out to schools saying, hey, you didn't update your rates this year. We need you to go in and do that so our stuff's up to date, et cetera. So there is a big process with that as it relates to keeping this information verified and reliable. Now the government data sources coverage is used to create this robust comparison tool like we call TA Decide. And at the bottom of the TA Decide page, if you want to know what all of these data sources are, at the bottom of the TA Decide page, which is not this slide, but probably the next one, it'll show there's a PDF down there. You can click that PDF and it'll show you where all the data sources that we use to filter and go into the display of the information that is in TA Decide. All right, so another quick quiz. Put it in chat, please. Question is, can academic institutions appear in the TA Decide tool using a paid advertisement? So can an academic institution appear in the TA Decide tool using paid advertisement? Right. I'm looking at the chat and the answer is no, 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 no. Got it. No, because schools appear in the TA Decide based on having an approved MOU with the Department of Defense via the policy office up at OSD, which conveys they have been properly vetted by DOD. So next slide, please. So how do we find TA Decide? As I mentioned previously, it's right next to the home button there on our DOD MOU homepage. Now you see there's a big yellow box around and a big yellow arrow for, and that's for this demonstration. Whoop, go back, please. That's just for this demonstration. It's not there in real life, but you just click TA Decide and it'll take you to now the next slide, which is the landing page for navigation through the TA Decide tool. So here you can see that service members can search for an academic institution. Remember, this is a comparison tool. We want to compare apples and oranges, or however you guys look at it that way. But we want to use this to compare schools, because we're essentially school shopping, we're program shopping, we're degree shopping to try to get the best fit for our service members. So there's several ways you can do this. That top arrow you see, let's say you know the name of a school, you have an idea of the name of the school, and you type that in here, you click that blue button next to it that says search, boom, up pops a school that matches your search criteria. If they're a DOD MOU school, they'll populate there. Remember, this is only going to show schools that have signed MOUs. But let's say you don't know the school and you're like, okay, well, maybe I want to go in the state of Georgia and I'm looking for somebody who's regionally accredited and I'm looking for degrees in aviation. Let's just say those are your 3 search criteria. You can do that below under the word that says or. So you can search by state, the type of accreditation, what type of school, you know, like if you want to go to a public school or, you know, private, not-for-profit, etc. Maybe you only want to do courses online through distant learning. Well, then under learning method, you click that down arrow and you click distant learning, etc., etc. So whenever you put these filters in and you click search, the information is going to go out and it's going to match the search criteria and it's going to populate a whole listing of schools that meet your search criteria. All right. So when it does that, then that allows you to pick schools to compare. Compare 1, 2, up to 3 schools you can compare. So next slide, please. So in this case, let's say we went out there and we picked a school. In this case study here, you know, because we're in Pensacola, we picked on our buddies there at Pensacola State, and we see that Pensacola State College is there. And under this navigation, you can do a couple things. One, you'll see at the bottom in a red ribbon, it says Pensacola State College. If we want to just look at that school alone, you can just click the view and compare that. But if you want to pick other schools, you can add schools. Let's say now we want to pick another school and another school. You can add up to a total of 3 schools to compare. So those search results are populated at the bottom of the page. And once you hit compare, it's going to compare the institutions that you've picked. Okay, next slide, please. So in this case, we did the little study there and said, okay, well, because we're in Pensacola, let's check our buddies across town at University of West Florida and let's compare these 2 schools. Yeah, they both offer a degree in X and they both are using TA school. You know, let's compare them. So this first section the comparison. We kind of broke this down so you could see it a little bit better. But here's an example of how we're comparing just two. Like I said, the third column says not reported, but we can put another school in there in your, when you compare schools. But in an example, we're only doing two. And we've broken out to see where the federal beneficiaries and fund sections of the TA Decide comparison tool, what that looks like. And here you can see, just as a quick snapshot, it gives you, the total school population, number of TA users, the amount of TA paid, GI Bill users and that money from the VA, and various federal student aid data points. As you can see, those below, it talks about grants and things like that. Now, this information, a lot of it, like I said, it comes from various sources, and we populate that every time whenever you hit the search button. So that's the comparison summary section. So now we're going to kind of shrink that and go to the next slide. And so as you see that where it has the red bracket there, we expanded that top line that said federal beneficiaries and funds so you could see that. But now in the next section, each one of these sections from program offerings all the way down to school eligibility is expandable. So under programs and offerings, we can't do it here because it's not a live demo. But if you click that, it's going to give you the degrees and certificates offered and the type of learning methods. Cost of attendance, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to tell you what it costs. It's also going to give you the cost of books and supplies. And under the DoD TA information, this is where you're going to get the number of users, TA users, the cost, the total TA funded courses, completion rate, and the graduation rate, etc. Now, under the Department of Education, this is where we're going to get enrollments, some admission policy, and transfer information, etc. Now, a lot of students like to see if there's been any complaints filed against institutions for whatever the reason may be. If they click that complaint information section, if there's been any complaints filed by TA and VA users against the institution that you have on your screen, it will list them here. Okay. And typically that is extracted from the post-secondary education complaint system, or PECS, not to be confused with PEPS. I know we're all about acronyms. I get it. And then the last one is the school eligibility. This is where you have compliance and policy instructions and that list you, what's your eligibility? Are you part of the yellow ribbon? Or is this school part of the participates in the 8 keys of veteran success, et cetera, et cetera? This is, so that essentially expand, you can expand each one of those. You can do a deep dive in each one of those. Just remember that these categories are populated by data. Like I said, from more than 10 government data sources. If you want to get that data source document, go to the TA Decide homepage, that landing page on the bottom right, you'll see the PDF there. And so there you can get that information about academic institutions. So as you can see, TA Decide is a dynamic tool. And if we could have done a live demo, it'd been really good, but probably don't have the bandwidth for that either. But it is a dynamic tool that can set service members up for success as they start their college journeys. So I think that was our last slide, and I don't want to eat into my next speaker's time. If you got questions, please put them in the chat. Emily or whoever else is running the chat, please send them my way. And so, like I said, that's all I got for today. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And now I'd like to introduce my colleague, Ms. Laura Dean, who is with us today from overseas locations in the beautiful Ramstein, Germany. She serves as the Contingencies Overseas Education Support Program Manager, providing education and services and resources to military members serving outside the continental United States. So without further ado, Laura, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Eddie. We can go ahead to the next slide. I appreciate you all having me here today. When we first started the day, Gina came on and reminded everyone that Dante's programs kind of fit into this pathway to success. And we talked about get ready, get set, and go. Well, Eddie just talked about some of those action things that service members can do as they go. Well, for the program that I oversee, the Contingency Overseas Support Program, it's the service member who actually packs up their bags and they go. And it's not until they get to their place that they've been ordered to go that Dantes then provides that support to the service member. Our service members get orders to perform their duties in overseas locations. Now, there's a variety of different military bases across the world. Some of them may be in Asia, and some may be in Europe, and then some are in the Middle East. And depending on where our military bases are, the service member will find different levels of support for their education. If they go to Asia, say Japan or Korea, or they go to Europe, Spain, the UK, Germany here, they more than likely will find an education office that has a government counselor there located who can provide them with, no kidding, face-to-face support, counseling. They can help them get their tuition assistance. They can help them either find a school locally, because there are some schools that are located on the military bases overseas, or they can assist them with continuing with their education with their home school that they may have been going to, maybe possibly one of you all who are here on our webinar today. And and when they go to those locations in Europe and in Asia, most of the time they will be assigned to that location for possibly a year, up to three years. And so they have a lot of time to work on their education. Now, sometimes our military members will get orders to be deployed, and that's where my office comes into play. Many times our military members are deployed to the Middle East, and they may be down there for 6 months to a year, possibly. It depends on the mission that they're going down to assist the military with. Now, if you look on my slide here, it shows where I'm located. I'm on an Air Force base in Ramstein, Germany, but the Dantes office here in Europe actually supports a bunch of service members who are about 3,000 miles away. And how we do that is we're partnering with a few government civilians who are education specialists who may be deployed also with our military, and also military education technicians who are all actually wearing a military uniform, who rotate in and out of the Middle East. Currently, we are providing services, face-to-face services in 8 different countries in the Middle East. And you can see them there on our map. We have about 13 different installations where service members can actually take classes face-to-face. They have access to national test centers where they can take CLEP and DSAT exams. Now, there's only 2 of us in the office in Ramstein. Obviously, we are not running the show in the Middle East to support those service members. We lean heavily on our partners, our military technicians, and some of those counselors who are civilians who deploy downrange, but we also have contracted with a university to assist us. We have a contract with UMGC, University of Maryland Global Campus, who also deploy their employees, their contractors, to these locations on the map. And they're the ones who are also providing guidance. They're teaching classes. They have faculty members, downrange, we call it, in the Middle East. And then they're managing the national test centers. Now, Just because University of Maryland has degree programs and they're teaching their own classes doesn't mean that they aren't providing additional services to those service members who are possibly taking classes through distance learning schools. Maybe your school's back in CONUS. They provide a lot of assistance if service members are having a difficult time figuring out how they get tuition assistance from their home office or their home education office back in the continental US. UMGC is there to assist. They also, through their national test centers, they can proctor distance learning exams for any student who might be taking online classes and need an actual proctor. So again, it's a partnership between government employees who are counselors, as well as contracted universities to provide any kind of support to those service members who want to continue with their education while they're overseas. So if you have any students, and you may actually have some, because when I talk about service members, I'm not just talking about active duty members who wear the uniform every day. We also have Guard and reserve members who are deployed to our location. So you may see them in their civilian clothes in your classroom or online if you're teaching classes online, but sometimes those folks are also serving the country. They get orders and they have to come and they're deployed downrange and they continue their education while they are overseas or in these very challenging areas of the Middle East. If you can go ahead and change my slide for me. Now, as I was talking about being a very challenging area, if you've been watching the news recently, the AOR, the area of responsibility, we call it, of the area of Middle East, it's been very turbulent over the last few months. And as a result, we've seen a lot of increases in what we call the force protection conditions. And so there's a lot of restrictions on the service members. They might not be able to leave base, or they may be wearing additional battle gear to be protected while they're working their military duties at that deployed location. Recently, in the last few weeks, some of those folks have even had to run to the bunkers because of what's going on in the area. So I mentioned that because if you have any students who are deployed and they're trying to continue with their education, know that it can be a stressful area. And so most of our universities who have military members who are taking their classes, they know that they may need to be a little more flexible with our military members because their mission is a little bit different. Sometimes the schools give them a little extra time to turn in assignments, or if they're taking online courses, sometimes the internet is kind of spotty down there, or they have a Wi-Fi and everybody is on the Wi-Fi. So they may not be able to do the assignments on time. They may have to send them in at a different time. The facilities and infrastructure can be challenging down there also. They are living in tents in some of the locations. For instance, Prince Sultan Air Base is in Saudi Arabia, and our education or learning resource center is in a tent. So it's not like going to school back at home. Another challenge that they often have to overcome is the time difference. I'm here in Germany. I am 6 hours ahead of East Coast time. So it's coming up at almost 7 o'clock my time. And then, but a lot of the other bases are almost 8 hours ahead of the East Coast time. So if your school's on Pacific time, your students who are deployed are either waking up very, very early or staying up very late to try to contact your academic advisor. Let's go to the next slide. It's not all bad news. There are some successes. We know that service members are happy to continue with their education while they're deployed or overseas, and they do it. For instance, And on this slide, you know, I am the contracting officer representative for the contract that we have with UMGC down there. So I truly know the data that they provide to us. I know about how many students they're helping on site or through distance learning. And you can see at the bottom of the slide here, last year, they awarded 103 degrees to service members who were downrange. And remember, some of that time, that tour that they are downrange, it's only for six months. So they're really working hard while they're down there. The UMGC is also, if you look at that last bullet, they had last year 3,600 students enrolled with them. In almost 5,000 classes, and their national test centers administered 1,400 exams. And so we know that service members want the support down there. One of the national test centers in Qatar, the base is Al Udeid, they were #1 of all worldwide national test centers for the amount of CLEP exams that they administered. That's talking all of the NTCs worldwide. So we're very proud of all of the support that UMGC provides, as well as the military technical team and the ESOs that do deploy with the military down there. What I would ask for the people who are on the webinar, if you have students who do deploy, before they come down, if you know that they're coming, encourage them to take CLEP, DSST. Possibly they may be able to take a CLEP or a class with UMGC that may transfer back to their degree plan with you. So prep them ahead of time, knowing that they have support. And then when they come back, reconnect with them. They may have done some work while they were overseas. They may have done nothing. And if they chose not to do anything while they were deployed, remember that it may take them a little bit of adjustment once they come back. Remember, life is totally different when they're deployed. They have to come back, kind of get readjusted to family life and just life in general. Give them little tiny light reminders. Hey, we're here. Come back and see us when you're ready to start up school again. We all know it's very, very difficult to get past that inertia of not doing school and getting back into it. So that's what would be what I would recommend is, hey, we're happy you're back. Come back into the office and see us, and let's get you started back up. And I think we are trying to get us closed here. So I'm going to pass on to Emily. She's our stakeholder engagement office. So over to you, Emily.
Thanks, Laura. I'm actually gonna close it off
Oh.
on behalf of all of us, because there's just so much good information from Laura and Eddie and Matt, and we didn't want to shorten any of that if we didn't have to. So to keep within time, we, on behalf of everybody at Dantes and Kale, who was a part of putting this series together, thank you so much. There's a survey that'll pop up when you leave the webinar. We appreciate your feedback. If there are any lingering questions, we'll stay on for a few minutes just to collect them and then share them across the staff and address them as best we can in follow-up email. And additionally, we'll follow up with everybody who's registered to provide the recording, a PDF of the slides, and then highlight some of the resources that we want to make sure you are aware of as you continue this good work. So thank you all so very much. Amazing to see so many of you on this 2-hour webinar during what I know is a busy time. Thank you to Emily and Gina and Laura and Eddie and Matt, and to Pat over at Kale, who was our behind the scenes person doing all the good work. We appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful rest of your week and hope to see you soon. Thanks.